tell us a bit about how you came to Russia? What was your background and what made you coming to Russia?
All right.
You know?
I came to Russia because I decided that my life was boring, full of material things, but not emotions, not meaning. And at first, I thought that being a photographer was really easy to something easy to do, and then I realized that it was way harder, especially because we took 1 year traveling around few countries, making pictures, sleeping in the nature in a tent, and I realized it during this time that it wasn't that easy. And well, basically that I wanted to do a life-changing thing.
Right. What's your working background before you came with the idea you can be a photographer? What was your previous jobs and previous experience?
I'm a telecommunication engineer, and I work in the aviation field, and then for 6 years I made a big project sailing radars in airports, and then I work in an IT department in same company, and yeah, I was a project manager making good money. I was a diver too, and yeah, that's kind of my technical background.
Right. It sounds like you had a really good life, like it was really stable. But money and all the property you had, it wasn't enough for you, right? So at some point you decided to drastically change your life, right? And in this sense, Russia, how you consider Russia? Was it a good choice for you?
Uh, yeah, you're right. I had good material things, but not satisfaction from this lifestyle. And I went to Russia as a first step. I was planning to go to South Asia, but uh, in order to do that, I needed a Chinese visa. But I was already there in Siberia. So they say, or we read that the only way to do it was making it in Moscow, this visa. So we decided to come to Moscow by hitchhiking, and after that we decided not going anymore to South Asia. And during this time I discovered about many cities in Russia. We spent 2 months traveling and hitchhiking, like I say, sleeping in different places.
All right. Which cities you were in? Can you make a list?
Yeah, there were many cities, big and small cities, but I
Which were the most remarkable for you? The most noticeable?
yeah, Omsk, Volgograd, uh, Pitigorsk, Elistad, and let's see, those. Maybe I don't remember if it was Krasnoyar or Novosibirsk, but yeah, those are the one I remember. And there was a lot of traveling in between cities. I mean, 3 days or 2 days, just in a row. We made almost 6,000 kilometers in total.
Oh wow, that's a lot. But now you live in Saint Petersburg, right?
Yeah.
And you found this place as a best of all the choices you had, right? Why you made this decision to stay in Saint Petersburg for the rest of your Russian trip?
Well, as someone who grew up in Latin America, it's very similar to American life, I will say. and especially in Venezuela, we used to have a good economy, and comfort is part of life there. Russia, let's say, I realized that everything, or all the money or all the investment in infrastructure and architecture and these things is in Saint Petersburg, I will say, and maybe Moscow. And I couldn't get used to the Soviet style. It's really hard for me, especially when considering the aesthetic aspect of life. For me, I need a comfortable place. However, I realized that by living here, I got used to some level of uncomfortable things, which is fine. It really helps to adapt to different situations. But basically, St. Petersburg, I will say, is the most European city in Russia. That's the reason, and also the most artistic city I ever been, including many cities in Europe, Paris and Rome. I mean, St. Petersburg is just like a real painting, like an old painting alive. Yeah.
Alright. So this city complements your intentions, right? To live more artistic life, to live more interesting life in general, right? Not the life based on the stability of all that credit history life, let's name it like that. You know, you want to explore more, you want to create more, and Saint Petersburg is kind of the place for this lifestyle. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, definitely. St. Petersburg it's an inspiring place for artistic people, especially photographers. The sky is amazing, the colors, the different light opportunities that you have, the saturation in colors in everyday life, street, different weathers, people is interesting too. It's amazing. Also the river and it's really close to it's a bay, so there are many things there. The wind, it's amazing as a
And the huge dimensions. That's what I like about Saint Petersburg. Not like in Moscow. Moscow is big, but I never seen the huge like places with water, with all this architecture, with all this dimension. You know, I always come to Petrogradsk, for example, to the Peter and Paul fortress to see this dimension. I always like to cross the bridges, so from the bridges you can see these huge areas, and I never felt it like that even in Moscow.
yeah. It is. It's an open city, an open place. It's open architecture too. No high buildings and a lot of wind, water.
All right, so you came to Russia, you faced the new culture, right? You met new people. Are they different from you? Are Russians different from Latin American people?
Yeah, well, the main difference. It's interesting. We are different and we are similar in some aspects too.
All right, let's start from different things.
Yeah.
People like differences, so let's start from differences.
Well, main difference I will say is that Russian people is really close. It's not easy to get into a good open friendship here. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. People have a big barrier, big wall protecting them, but isolating them as well.
In which details you see this feature, like the lack of the smile on the face, or something in the attitude, or something in the speech? What details show you this barrier for you
Yeah.
yourself?
Uh, it's the lack of socializing. It's hard to communicate. It's hard to. I think there is no the cultural thing about going out, about having fun here is totally different. People don't do it that much. Also, it's not that you go to the house of Russian people that often. They don't get together in a place, and when they go out, yeah, we go to a restaurant to another place, but in general, people is close. And in gestures, of course, we don't. I mean, you don't kiss. You don't kiss to each other that much.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because you're explaining me that you're always kissing, like on public,
Yeah.
and this is alright in Latin America, in Venezuela in particular, to hug the girl and
Hug
kiss
and
her
kiss.
on public, if it even if it's not your girlfriend or really close friend.
Yeah.
You still can uh,
Yeah, you can. I
hug
mean,
hug the girl and kiss her. Is
it's
it right?
yeah, it's normal in Venezuela that every time every new day, for example, when you go to the office, you kiss girls in the cheek, and that's a cultural thing. It's normal, but here it's impossible. Also, hugging is you feel it. It's strange. You don't have this in your day life, and you don't. I will say that you don't know how to hug. Yeah, really, and especially when I hug. When I had this experience here, uh, there is something in between, like girls trying to hug but trying to not to get too close.
To leave some distance
Some
in between.
distance, yeah, it's like hugging in the top. You don't hug in in the rest of the body, and it's when you stand and do like this.
So generally, we are not expressing ourselves like Latin people. We are not this kind of expressionists. Let's say that
Yeah,
we are
yeah,
not showing emotions that much,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting that you notice this in everything, in the nature too. As a photographer, I see it too. You, everything is cold most of the year, but not most of the year, but many months, and yeah. But at the same time, which is interesting, when you open yourself, when Russian people open, it's really warm. I had this experience with few friends, and I understand that when they open completely. They believe, they trust, they trust, and they never show any lack of confidence. They invite you to meet their family, not as a in Spanish we have two words, friend, and in English I don't know this word. In Spanish it's conocido. It means that this is someone you know. It's not your friend. It's just someone you know.
All right. We have such words in Russian. For example, we have друг, which is friend, and приятель, kind of like an acquaintance.
Uh-huh.
Acquaintance.
Ah, all right.
Yeah. So maybe this is the word.
Yeah, and as a friend, yeah, you can meet the people and your family and really go deep into details. I had a friend. He's a photographer, and this guy opened himself to me, and it was really nice. But in general, I will say that year, well, let's say 2 years, I've been coming and going to Russia. I only made two friends, two good friends, I will say. And in average in Venezuela, you will meet much more people, and you will visit more people. You will share, you will cook, you will do many other things. But then this is the question: are they real friends? And both cases, it's hard to tell. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And what about the similarities? How we're similar to Latin American people?
Well, I will say that in Russia, people will, I mean, Latin American people say that it's a little bit similar to Italian or people from Greece, or yeah. And then in the other side, in opposite side, there are English and English people, that Germans, Japanese, and I will say that Russian people have is in between this. It's not as cold. I will say that as a German.
Right.
Actually, it's kind of complicated.
But not that open as Latin
Yeah,
American people.
actually, cold is not the right word, because German people, they could be they can be warmer than Russian people, but then it's more methodical people. Yeah, this is the word. So Russian people is somehow less methodical, and that put it in a closer position to Venezuelan people. So what do we have in common? We have this tricky thinking, which is not that good. Things about, for example, finding a way to get things faster, to make it easier. For example, when there is a line of people and you go in front, and you don't respect that there is a lot of people waiting there before. I had this experience here, and I had to tell the guy or the girl, excuse me, you are late, and I'm first, and so you go back to the end of the line. But yeah, well, this happened in many other places too, and it's something I'm not proud of.